අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday the 23rd of May 2023. Improving but still challenging. Sri Lankan macroeconomic situation shows tentative signs of recovery, says IMF mission chiefs to Sri Lanka. However, warns that overall macroeconomic and policy environment remains challenging. Unable. State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambalapitiya responds to social media statements that hint of a reduction in liquor prices, says the government is unable to do such. Effective monitoring. Cabinet to appoint a National Development Committee for the evaluation process of new government projects.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරමක්.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. In your top story for tonight, an International Monetary Fund delegation to Sri Lanka says that the macroeconomic situation in the island is showing tentative signs of improvement following the implementation of strong policy efforts. Now issuing a statement concluding their visit in Sri Lanka today, the IMF delegation said that keeping up the economic reform momentum and ensuring timely implementation of the IMF-supported program's commitment are key for Sri Lanka to emerge from the economic crisis. The delegation also added that achieving timely restructuring agreements with creditors in line with program targets by the time of the first review is essential to restoring debt risk sustainability.
The International Monetary Fund delegation, led by Senior Mission Chief Peter Brewer and IMF Mission Chief Masahiro Nosaki, arrived in Sri Lanka on the 11th of May to discuss recent economic developments and implementation of the fund-supported program. After 12 days of stay in Sri Lanka, the IMF delegation concluded their visit today. Issuing a joint statement on their visit, Mission Chiefs Peter Brewer and Masahiro Nosaki stated that discussions took place on the recent macroeconomic and financial sector developments. They also stated that following strong policy efforts, the macroeconomic situation in Sri Lanka is showing tentative signs of improvement, with inflation moderating, the exchange rate stabilizing, and the central bank rebuilding reserves buffers. However, they say that the overall macroeconomic and policy environment remains challenging. Further, the IMF mission chiefs say they welcome the authorities' ongoing efforts in meeting key commitments under the fund-supported program and added that the performance under the program will be formally assessed in the context of the first review of the extended fund facility arrangement, which is expected to be undertaken in September 2023. The mission has also discussed additional fiscal efforts that will be critical to ensure successful revenue mobilization. Further, the mission chiefs have also discussed progress on debt restructuring, noting the ongoing discussions with both foreign and domestic creditors. They added that achieving timely restructuring agreements with creditors in line with program targets by the time of the first review is essential to restoring debt sustainability. Peter Brewer and Masahiro Nosaki noted that keeping up the reform momentum and ensuring timely implementation of program commitments, including to ensure central bank independence, improve governance, and protect the vulnerable, are key for Sri Lanka to emerge from the economic crisis.
Now in Parliament today, State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambalapitiya says that the government is unable to reduce the prices of liquor as mentioned in several social media reports, even though the government has lost 30% of its income from excise tax this year. In the meantime, Minister of Trade Nalin Fernando said that the government will allow the importation of more items that are banned in the near future.
2021 සැප්තැම්බර් ඔක්තෝබර් වෙද්දී අපි බහන්ඩ 1480ක් මේ රටට ආනයනය කිරීම නවත්තලා තියෙනවා. අද වෙද්දී ඒක 685ක් වෙනකන් අපි අඩු කරගෙන තියෙනවා. නමුත් ඉදිරි මාස කිහිපයක් යද්දී මේ 680 පැනත යම් ප්‍රමාණයක් ආනයනය කිරීම සඳහා අපිට අවස්ථාව ලබා දෙන්න පුළුවන්.
තාමත් මේ රටේ මේ ඩොලර් හිඟය ගැන කතා කරනවා. හැබැයි මේ එකම පවතින කැසිනෝ පර්මිට් හතරෙන් එකකවත් මේ වෙනතෙක් මේ එන්ට්‍රන්ස් ෆී එකේ $1ක්වත් මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශය හා අදාළ ආයතන එකතු කරලා නැහැ. මේ අවුරුදු 28ටම. ඒ වගේම මම යෝජනා කරනවා දැන් පෝට් සිටි එක ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙලා තියෙන නිසා වෙනම ආයතනයක් ඒ බලන නිසා දැනට මේ ප්‍රධාන භූමියේ ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන කැසිනෝ සියල්ලම ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම කළ යුතු වන්නේ පෝට් සිටියට ඒ බලපත්‍ර හතර යවන එකයි. ඒ හතර යවලා ඒ විධිමත් ආකාරයකට ඒවා නියාමනය කරන එකයි.
2023 මේ මිල වැඩි කිරීමත් එක්ක සුරා භාවිතය අඩු වුණා ලංකාවේ. මේ අවුරුදු මේ මාස කීපය තුළ 30%ක ආදායම අඩුවීමක් අපිට තියෙනවා නියෝජ්‍ය කතානායකතුමනි. මේක අඩුවීම හොඳයි. සුරාව පාලනය කරන්න ඕනේ. හැබැයි මේ අඩුවීම යොමු වෙන්නේ නීත්‍යානුකූල නොවන පානයක් සඳහා නම් රාජ්‍ය ආදායමත් නැහැ. මේ රටේ මේ රෝගීන් බවට පත්වීමට තියෙන කිසිදු පාලනයක් නැති පානයක් තමයි එතන යන්නේ. ඉතින් මේක ගැන කල්පනා කළ යුතුයි. නමුත් අපිට මිල අඩු කරන්න බෑ. මම දැක්ක පහුගිය සතියේම සමාජ මාධ්‍ය ජාලාවල ගියා සුරා මිල අඩු කරන්න රජයේ සූදානම්. නෑ අපිට අඩු කරන්න බෑ.
පෞගේ කාලේ ජපන් රජයෙන් විශේෂයෙන් ආධාර ලැබිලා මුදල් ලැබිලා කටුනායක දුවන්ට තොටවලේ ආරම්භ කරපු ව්‍යාපෘතිය නැවතුණා. ඒ නැවතිච්ච කාරණය මේ කවුරුත් දන්නවා. එතකොට ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් මොකද්ද රජයේ ගන්නා පියවර? දැන් මේ ව්‍යාපෘතිය නැවතිලා තිබෙන්නේ. එතකොට මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඇමතිවරයෙක් වග උත්තරකාරයෙක් කියලා අමාත්‍යාංශයෙන් ඉවත් කළා තිබුණා. ඊට පස්සේ නැවත යාව පත් කෙරුවා කොමිටියක් දාලා. නමුත් මෙහිදී මම කියන්නට ඕන ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන්ම මේ ගුවන්තොටුපළේ මේ නැවතිලා තිබෙන ජපාන් ව්‍යාපෘතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම සඳහා වහාම රජයේ කටයුතු කළ යුතුයි.
Now, the Cabinet of Ministers has given the approval to set up a National Development Committee to evaluate the progress of new projects and implemented by the government. The committee will be chaired by former Deputy Treasury Secretary Daya Lienage. In a press release, the government pointed out that the past projects and programs failed to achieve an expected outcomes due to being implemented without proper evaluation. Taking this into account, President Ranil Wickremesinghe in his budget speech for the fiscal year 2023 had proposed to establish a National Development Committee tasked with evaluating new government projects and programs. At the cabinet meeting yesterday, the approval was given to the proposal tabled by the head of state seeking the appointment of a National Development Committee that submits its recommendations to the cabinet pertaining to the government programs and projects. Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has been invited to the United Arab Emirates to participate in the World Climate Action Summit, a key event that will inaugurate the Emirates Climate Conference. The invitation, which was extended by the UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, was handed over to the President by the UAE Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Khalid Nazir Al Ameri, yesterday. The World Climate Action Summit's Leaders event is scheduled to take place on the 1st and 2nd of December and will coincide with the UAE's 52nd National Day celebrations. The Emirates Climate Conference serves a prominent international platform for climate dialogues and plays a vital role in steering climate negotiations among United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change member parties. The conference aims to foster equal opportunities for all stakeholders to engage in transformative partnerships and contribute to groundbreaking equitable solutions. The climate conference will also mark the launch of the 20th session of the Conference of the Parties to the UNFCCC of the COP28 at the Expo City, Dubai. Now, the police fired tear gas on student activists of the University of AdaDerana Union, which during a protest was carried out in Kandy. The protest march was carried out by the students urging the government to fulfill several demands.
A protest march was launched by the Students' Union of the University of AdaDerana, urging the government to fulfill demands including more student welfare. The students who began the march from the AdaDerana University marched towards the dental faculty of the university via the Colombo-Kandy main road. Vehicular traffic were disrupted due to the protest. Later, the police fired tear gas to disperse the protesters. Tear gas fired by the police damaged the windscreen of a van that was transporting tourists.
Now, Puttalam District Parliamentarian Ali Sabri Rahim was arrested at the Derana International Airport along with a stock of undeclared gold today. The customs officials seized a total of 3.5 kilograms of undeclared gold from the parliamentarian upon his arrival at the Derana International Airport from overseas. The Puttalam District Parliamentarian was arrested by customs officials based on a tip-off received by the Revenue Task Force Directorate while the Speaker of Parliament was informed of the arrest. Following interrogations, which continued for nearly 5 hours, he was reportedly transferred to a mobile branch of the Sri Lanka Customs. The Minister of Power and Energy, Kanchana Wijesekara, said that the final draft of the new Electricity Act is due to be submitted to the Attorney General's Department and the legal draftsman next week for translation and certification purposes. Taking to Twitter, the minister said that the Ceylon Electricity Board Reforms Committee, together with the legal and energy consultants provided by the development agencies to assist the relevant reforms, met at the President's office this morning to discuss the final draft of the new act and the transition program in this regard. Accordingly, the previous timeline predicted for the completion of the final draft has been amended due to observations made by stakeholders. Minister Wijesekara further mentioned that the amended final draft of the Act will be presented before the Cabinet in the month of June after the certification process. Stay with us for more news right after this short commercial break.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන්කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
Welcome back. The chairman of the Public Utilities Commission, Janaka Ratnayaka, requests the members of the parliament to refrain from voting in favour of a resolution against him. Addressing media briefing today, Ratnayaka said that people should get at least 27% reduction from the electricity tariff revision that is expected to take place in July.
Irrespective of their political belief or political camp or party, I think this time the constituents should get together and defeat this motion, because if you are voting for this motion, meaning of that is that you are challenging independency of a commission, and it is not merely putting me out from the job. All members of the parliament should unite against this unethical, unrealistic proposal made by the Minister Kanchana Wijesekara. He wanted me to go out from this position maybe for last couple of months. I am against the tariff hike, even the recent tariff hike. If you look at the calculations properly, the consumer should get minimum 27% discount. Instead, they have proposed, CB has proposed only 3%. I have been always against this illegal proposals by CB. Now it is proven with the data, available data, the consumption has gone down, material cost of generation gone down. Therefore, the benefit of 25%, 27% should be given. The latest reason for them to remove me from this position is that I am canvassing to get 27% reduction from the revision of July. So if they put me out tomorrow, it would be easy for them to get this politically affiliated members and get what they want.
The Minister of Tourism, Harin Fernando, is optimistic that Sri Lanka will be able to reach the potential of the number of flights operating between cities and Colombo by the end of this year. Addressing a media briefing to mark the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative and China-Sri Lanka cooperation, the minister also requested Chinese authorities to aid in bolstering Sri Lanka's tourism, highlighting that 500,000 tourists from China to Sri Lanka will be sufficient.
Sri Lankans never give up. We always, whatever problem comes, we always smile. What Sri Lanka has to offer you is a beautiful country and beautiful hearts. Sri Lanka is never a bucket list country where you just go to a country and say, I have been to Sri Lanka. What we want in Sri Lanka is people to fall in love and to keep coming back to your second home. Before COVID, in 2018, we had 27 flights a week from China. Currently, we have only 11 flights, and with the support of His Excellency, we are trying to increase it. By July, it will be 14 flights, but I will make sure with His Excellency, before the end of the year, we will reach up to the potential. If you send more than 500,000 Chinese tourists, that's more than enough for us. So please communicate about this beautiful place. It's really the pearl of the Indian Ocean.
Now, the Colombo Bourse closed high today, added by gains in the financial and consumer staple stocks. The CSE All Share Price Index settled 0.28% up to end at 8,635.31 points, snapping 3 straight session losses. Commercial banks of Ceylon and Carson Cumberbatch were the top gainers on the index, rising 5.45% and 7.11% respectively. Trading volume on the CSE All Share Price Index rose to 31.5 million shares from 27.4 million in the previous session. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 climbed 0.6%, ending at 2,448.89 points. The market turnover rose to 727.5 million rupees from 599 million rupees in the previous session. The banking sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while the food, beverage and tobacco sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 191.8 million rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 691.6 million rupees. Now let's take a look at how the rupee traded against the other major currencies during the day. Now, global oil prices rose today as support from a tighter market outlook due to a seasonal rise in gasoline demand and supply cuts from OPEC Plus producers overshadowed investor concern over the risk of a US debt default.
Brent crude was up by 0.8% and settled at $76.56 a barrel, while US West Tex Intermediate crude gained 0.6% to $72.47. The gains added to a rally yesterday when crude gained a tailwind from a 2.8% increase in US gasoline futures ahead of the Memorial holiday on the 29th of May, which traditionally marks the start of the peak summer demand season. As well as the gasoline demand, the onset in May of voluntary production cuts by several members of OPEC Plus is also expected to tighten supply. OPEC Plus meets again on the 4th of June, and some analysts see a chance of further cuts. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia's energy minister announced today that he would keep short sellers, those betting that prices will fall, ouching, and told them to watch out. Also coming onto the radar is the latest US inventory data, which analysts expect to show a small rise in crude stocks. The first of the week's 2 reports from the American Petroleum Institute is also due at 8:30 Greenwich time.
Now, global markets were cautious today as talks over the US debt ceiling offered booming for the optimists and pessimists, leaving European shares just shy of last week's 5-month top and its benchmark yields at least highest in 2 months. Meanwhile, the Asia season months sold mostly today, with Japan's Nikkei snapping its 7-day winning streak.
President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy could not reach an agreement yesterday on how to raise the US government's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling, with just 10 days before a possible default. However, both sides stressed the need to avoid default with a bipartisan deal and said they would continue to talk, leaving investors cautious about making larger bets either way. Europe's broad stock 600 benchmark slipped 0.25%, trading a little below Friday's 15-month intraday high, largely looking through activity data that showed Eurozone business growth remained resilient, if a touch softer than expected. Futures tied to Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by 0.2%. S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq 100 futures pulled back by about 0.3% and 0.5% respectively. Meanwhile, Asian markets mostly slid today, with Japan's Nikkei closing 0.42%, snapping its 7-day winning streak. In Australia, the ASX 200 gained 0.1% as the country's Composite Purchasing Managers Index saw a softer expansion in May. South Korea's Kospi climbed 0.41% and the Kosdaq closed 0.84% higher at 859.16 points. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index reversed earlier gains to sink 1.27% to its lowest closing level since March, while mainland Chinese markets also traded lower.
And that's all the news we have for you this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time.